Hi everyone, welcome to my review of The Pink Panther Strikes Again in 1976, and once again directed by Blake Edwards. Here we are, another Pink Panther review, of course. I watched this, rewatched this, of course, today, along with Revenge of the Pink Panther as well afterwards. And yes, it was very interesting to see these two as well, the later ones, and then of course, no more Peter Sellers after that. It's very, very sad, but yes, this one strikes again. I was really looking forward to rewatching this. Haven't seen it in about 8 years, maybe, until today. And yes, it used to be one of my favourite comedies of all time. Mainly, yes, I look at it, and I think, actually, looking back, I didn't watch all of the film constantly over. There was times where I'd watch it. It's because it was a very watched film of mine, but I didn't. I skipped parts of this, and I remember, yes, definitely. And now that I've obviously rewatched all of this, in its entirety, it's not overall as good as I thought, because off memory and stuff. There was definitely the first 50 minutes. I stand by it. It's some of the funniest comedy I've seen, and again, it does pick up again in the final third of the film. But there's a middle of this that it's very, very silly. It's very kind of flat. It's not that funny, barely funny, and yes, it's a bit of a letdown. Of course, as well, this is when it really went over the top. There is some stuff that just, yes, it's funny at times, definitely, but it doesn't go that far. It doesn't, elevate to greatness a lot of the time. But yes, this film, I watch this all the time. Especially the parallel bar stuff. This material, even Roger Ebert admitted it in his 2.5 out of 4 review, which is quite low. Basically saying this is some of the best Edwards Sellers material. The beginning of the film, the parallel bars, they kind of the stuff at the beginning, and of course with Cato and everything. This is comedy gold. It really is, and yes, of course, just the hilarious, just so funny stuff in the beginning. The training, of course, once again, returning Cato, of course, and just the kind of the stuff that goes on there, and then you've got, of course, Dreyfus in the mix, played by Herbert once again, who is just brilliant. Of course, again, they go very, very over the top in this film, but Herbert is very, very good at doing this, and mostly it's not really flawed at all in the film. It does, there's moments towards the end where it is a bit too much, because they went really, really over the top in this, and I mean that. They really went over the top, especially, of course, with the kind of doomsday machine that they build, the thing that, of course, vanishes different parts of the world. And yes, that's basically the plot of this film. It's very, very kind of over the top and very Bond inspired, with the Roger Moores. But yes, basically, the beginning scene is a great one, of course. Herbert, of course, Sellers, Clouseau, Dreyfus. Basically, Dreyfus is about to get out of the asylum, and then, of course, he's getting kind of the meeting at 2 o'clock, and he's looking forward to it and stuff. And it appears he's fine again, after, of course, the events of the last film. And then, of course, who shows up? Clouseau, and puts a spanner in the works. Basically, once again, Herbert, of course, Dreyfus, basically goes insane after a few minutes of talking with Clouseau, and then, of course, he doesn't get out, and then, of course, yes, basically, he breaks out and all this kind of stuff, and there's all these different, criminals involved. That he kind of builds this team, and kind of involving, of course, heists and everything, and then eventually building this machine to kind of wipe out the world. And of course, again, he wants Clouseau and everything. And yes, basically, the president gets involved, and it just goes everywhere. This film, it goes as far as you can go, really. And of course, that works, times, and other times it's a bit too much. It does go too big for its own good, I think, this film. The stuff with the president and all these kind of, just the government in general, it doesn't quite work. It could have been taken out of the film. It wasn't needed, because the film, at its best, is the first 50 minutes where it is really, really just great Pink Panther. Great comedy, and there's none of this stuff. It's just very, very grounded as well, considering, but this is just so hilarious. I was loving it once again, like I always did. And yes, I think the balance of comedy, and just, of course, there's some action in there as well, but building up this other plot with the villains, and yes, I think Peter Sellers here, again, standing by this. You know, in many ways, this is kind of, I stand by this, you know, definitely in many ways, the best that Peter Sellers has been as the Inspector Clouseau, of course. And yes, basically, it really is just a culmination of so many great things. Yes, it does kind of take from the other films at times, but yes, it's just amazing. It really is. It's just a laugh a minute at least. You know, well, multiple laughs a minute. It's just hilarious, and it's so well done. You know, I think the kind of the restraint at times as well. Sellers is just genius in this segment of the film, and then of course the thing with the assassination plots. That's when things start to take a little bit of a dip. Definitely, there's moments where quite a few minutes at a time where really no laughs whatsoever for me, and it's stuff that I never really I kind of used to skip when I was younger, and now I see why. You know, it's just not. It's not that engaging and it's not that funny, and it's just kind of. I would compare it to some of the kind of the humour of some of the Roger Moore Bonds, you know, View to a Kill and stuff, and maybe The Man with the Golden Gun. It's just stupid and just odd, really is. That's it's what it comes across as for me. Of course, check out my channel. I'm a massive Bond fan, but some of the Roger Moore ones are loads of the franchise. And yes, this one it does kind of feel like this at times. But then luckily again it picks up the infiltration of the castle, all this kind of stuff. The last 30 minutes of the film is again very, very good. At times hilarious. The pairing, of course, with Dreyfus and of course Clouseau is amazing once again, and it's just got so many amazing moments there. But of course Clouseau kind of tries to get into the castle. He's desperate, he's desperate in his attempts. Not for once at this moment do you feel that Sellers is really, really trying to make us laugh. He's just, as this character, he just is funny, and of course he is trying, of course. It's just such great acting. He's trying, all we know is he's trying to get into this castle. And in doing so, it's hilarious, and it doesn't feel forced at all, and it's just really at times genius, this moment where he's trying to get in, and it really is the kind of progression of this, where he's trying to get into the castle, and he keeps falling in the water. That is great Pink Panther stuff. The middle of the film really lets it down, and of course, yes, when he gets into the castle and stuff, there's the stuff with the machines and everything, and the whole world domination kind of thing, and destroying the world. It is a flaw of the film, because it's just the believability of the early ones, Pink Panther films, even Return of the Pink Panther. It's just kind of in these moments at times it is gone, and it doesn't allow the film to be as grounded, and actually it does go a bit too far. But then again, an amazing final scene. So this film is very, very good. I think I can't quite give it. It's not great for me, although a lot of the film is great. I think because of the middle of the film, around about 20 minutes or so, really lets it down. At times it's barely funny here, and it's just kind of stupid. Some of the side characters, the acting from there, it's not really much. It's not really, of course, stuff where the casting seemed like it being essential here. They just kind of, it seemed, got kind of random. Just it's very, very cheap, basically, and kind of campy, and it just doesn't quite work for me. The rest of the film is really amazing / very, very good. And I think it's definitely a very good film. I mostly love the film, apart from the middle parts. I really do love it. So I have to give it an 84%. Not as quite as high as Return of the Pink Panther, unfortunately. The score is not quite as high. What I prefer is very, very close. My preference. But yes, watching the film in its entirety, definitely got a middle act that's kind of definitely has its weak moments, and overall it's average, definitely in the middle of the film, and again some moments in the final act that are just a bit too over the top, definitely. And of course I didn't really catch on to that at times when I was a kid, because definitely this one would appeal more to children, and of course yes, it's just one of them films where it does go too over the top at times, even for considering the tone of the film. It's not established to be a film to be taken fully seriously, but again, the first 45 minutes of the film kind of is, it is out there, but it is kind of definitely in its performances and its kind of set up, and the kind of bits where Peter Sellers is going through the houses and stuff. Very, very, it is kind of grounded, definitely, and it is, it's patient and it's earned comedy, and it really is hilarious. Really is. This is comedy great. This really is greatness here. I love this. The first 50 minutes of the film. This is the sort of stuff I'd watch over and over as a kid. It really was, and it's so good. And of course, yes, once the castle infiltration begins, it picks up again. But the middle act of the film is such a shame. Just the stuff where it kind of goes global scale, and it kind of, because the final act of the film, although it does involve the machine, it's kind of again one location, the castle, and it's kind of peaceful and stuff, and yeah, it's just it feels more natural. The bits with when it goes really global and the president is involved, it didn't need to happen there. It really just hindered the film, and just wasn't that funny. The assassination stuff, there's some laughs in there, but barely any really for me. And Sellers again though is amazing in the film, and yes, the disguises do come into play, of course, later on in the film especially. But again, he really does achieve comedy greatness here. And the disguises, yes, one or two of them are a bit too much, and stuff, but they fully take the film seriously. But again, it's just the middle act really that does let the film down from being maybe a great film for me. It would have been a great film if it wasn't for this. Of course, Return of the Pink Panther had, of course, some moments where it wasn't with the villain subplot, where it wasn't that compelling, and it let the film down. This is really an entire act of the film where it just isn't as good as it could have been. It's very, very average at times. Has got its really, really stupid moments and stuff, and acting and all this kind of stuff. Cheap B-grade stuff that just kind of floods the middle act of the film. And just, it just wasn't, the stuff with the machine is a bit too far, of course. But this film, I think, is very, very good. An 84%, of course, is a very high score from me. And of course, I do enjoy it more than that. I think, as I say, this and Return of the Pink Panther are very, very close in my preference for sure. And the score, of course, for me. These, and Shot in Dark are the best. There's no other ones that come close to these for me in the franchise. The first Pink Panther for me is not as good, as I thought. Most people say it's a great film, which is fine. But for me, it's not. It's very average. This is way better than that, and I think definitely better than The Revenge as well. I do mostly love the film. It's got such a unique charm to it, and at times, it's so over the top. Sometimes it is just funny in itself, but there's times where it's over the top and it's kind of lazy and kind of flat. That's the moments where I don't really like it, and it's not as doesn't feel like a Pink Panther film in the middle of the film where the president and stuff comes into it. Too far for me, too much. But again, so much stuff to love here. Dreyfus, Clouseau, of course, and just the kind of the insane but kind of grounded final act of the film. And the first 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutes of the film is amazing. I love this part of the film, which is, the first half really, overall. The first half is much better. It does have like a 20-minute kind of sag, but then it picks up again, not regaining the heights of the first, half of the film. That would have been great for me, as I say, and that's the stuff that I always remember. Absolutely loving, and I do love the film, the first half of the film. I would recommend this. It is more over the top than A Shot in the Dark, and stuff. But it's at its best. It is really a great comedy. And Sellers, you could say, is at his heights here in terms of the kind of the Clouseau's performance, and of course as well Kato and him together in this film in the first act and stuff. Absolutely loved it. I love the kind of as well the weird sort of music that plays at times, where Clouseau is getting changed and ready for bed. It's just really, really funny and kind of just so charming. And then the kind of the fight that goes on there is just one of my favourite comedy scenes. And yes, this film, very, very good. Could have been great if it wasn't for the middle act of the film, which is a big chunk. But yes, Pink Panther strikes again. Very, very good comedy, and I do mostly love the film. And yes, thanks for watching my review.